This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English, episode number 60. Before we start the show, I would just like to say sorry for the confusion of the episodes recently, but from now on there will be an episode every single Monday because I'm back at work now, back in a routine, and don't worry anymore, everything is fine. So in today's show I speak to Dan the man about pooing, exactly, on the toilet, because I was sick and I had to do a lot of that, so I know a lot about it. There's some useful information actually, some techniques even, and some facts and some embarrassing stories as usual. Speaking of the technique though, it's generally a very useful thing which I describe in the episode. I don't describe it very well though, that's the problem. But on the website, rockandrollenglish.com, there will be a picture, not of me, of just someone, or actually like a diagram of someone doing this technique, which is very useful. And on the website, there will obviously be all the rock and roll vocabulary. A lot of it's toilet related, but useful anyway. The episode's a little bit longer than usual because, well, basically talking about pooing is actually really fun. And so we spoke about it for a little bit longer. Anyway, have fun listening and I'll speak to you again at the end. Dan the man, how are you today?
I'm good. Are you feeling better?
I am now. Yeah, finally. As I said in the last podcast, I got sick staying at Dan's house, which is something we are talking about in detail in today's show. But before we do that, Dan, how do we start the show?
By pretending we've got a review.
We don't need to pretend, boy. We have a review.
Who from?
This is from Manolito9966. And this is actually from Stitcher, which is a different podcasting app. So this is a great lesson for everyone. If you don't want to leave it on iTunes, that's fine. Send it or leave the review on whatever podcast.
What's the review?
Listen to it.
Come on.
It's a nice short one. And it says, this is a different podcast to improve English in an interesting and funny way. So thanks a lot, Manolito9966.
Yeah, cheers.
Sure. So yeah, as I was saying, I have been sick, very sick, thanks to Dan the man. And I have spent more or less the last week sitting on the toilet, which has been great.
Well, considering you did most of your own cooking here, maybe you can blame yourself because...
I think I cooked I think I had breakfast.
That's all it takes.
So that's what we're basically talking about, is going to the toilet in today's show. Before we start, I thought we could use some vocab, Dan. So different ways to say poo. I've got some here. What things come to your mind when we want to say the word poo in English?
Shit. Crap.
Oh, crap. Yeah, that's another one. I've got dump.
Dump, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously these ones like shit, dump, crap are not, particularly polite. A nice way to say poo is a number 2. What do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, you say it to children. I wouldn't...
Yeah, which is, well, that's the whole point. If you want to try and say poo in a nice way to say it is, I need to do a number 2.
No, don't tell people what you're doing. Just say, I'm going to the toilet. You don't need to go into details. They'll know after 5 minutes what you're up to. Also
a good idea, Dan. Anyway, so I've got some facts about the toilet and things like this. So how long do you think the average person spends on the toilet, Dan, in their life?
Well, I spend quite a lot. I don't know. 3 years?
That is exactly correct, Dan.
Is it really?
Unbelievable.
Really?
Yep, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. So, bang, you got the right answer. Although for me, I would say it's 3 years and 1 week, because I need to add on this week that I've spent on the toilet thanks to you. I've got something here for about Chinese people. It says here, well, not people, the place, China. It says here, in China, there are public toilets for dogs. Did you know that?
Really?
I've never heard that, so if any Chinese people are listening, if you could confirm that, that would be great. But I thought that's a great idea because having spent some time in France with Dan, there is dog shit everywhere. So
Well, they actually do have areas for dogs to poo, but no one uses it.
Well, they should do. They should build some public toilets for them. Also in Palermo, I must say, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have public toilets for dogs. Once I was walking with flip-flops, which are like open shoes you wear in the summer, and the top of my foot just kicked the shit. And so I had it on my foot. It was absolutely disgusting.
Was it a solid shit or
No, that's the worst thing. It was like a fresh one. So
how far did you have to walk?
well, it was only a little bit. I sort of just rubbed it off on the floor.
It's enough though, isn't it? It's enough.
It's enough, yeah. Any shit on my skin is not good. I generally try to avoid that. So here's some useful information for people, actually. So when you flush the chain, what's flush the chain, Dan?
When the water clears
Yeah,
whatever you've done in the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. So you do your business. Another way to say go to the toilet. You do your business, flush the chain. But did you know, Dan, that germs and bacteria can jump like 5 meters in the air?
I actually once flushed the chain whilst having a shit and water went in my eye.
In your eye?
Yeah, I was bending down to get something.
Well, that's some bacteria gone in your eye, Dan. So it says here, when you flush the chain, to quickly move as quickly as possible because, that bacteria can jump in your eye like it did to you, Dan, or any part of the body.
It's good advice.
That's it. Every day is a school day, Dan, and on Rock and Roll English, we are here to learn English and stuff about shit and other stuff, okay? But speaking of hygiene, apparently in 1992, there was a survey of the worst toilets in the world. Guess what was number 1?
England.
Well, Britain, yeah. That is unbelievable.
Really? Because I've seen some toilets in Italy that have sent shivers down your spine.
Oh, that's a nice piece of rock and roll vocabulary, Dan, that sends shivers down your spine, that makes you scared. Well, this is the interesting thing, Dan. So, number 2 was Thailand. I've been to Thailand, and many of the toilets consisted either of a hole in the floor to shit in or piss, or, if you were lucky, a bucket to shit in, and then you empty the bucket. How that is better than British toilets. So, I don't really know. And yeah, Italy's interesting because it's very strange because Italians are very clean about these kind of things. Obviously, there is the bidet, so, clean your arse, etc. But when you go to like a bar, generally there's only one toilet for men and women. And it's absolutely disgusting, especially when you go out at night to like a pub and there's, 200 people in the pub. And there's one toilet, and you think...
Yeah. They have that here as well, which I find it embarrassing because obviously when there's a big queue after you've been out, when you've been drinking, and there's a girl behind you, and the person before you has left it in a fucking state, I then have to clean the toilet because I don't want her to think it was me.
Yeah, that is true, Dan. It's like a domino effect, isn't it? So you go in there. I've actually been in there before, like someone's done a shit. Terrible. I've just gone in for like 30 seconds to do a quick piss, and then when I come out I actually say, that wasn't me, that smell.
Sure.
But public toilets is interesting, Dan. Do you poo in public toilets?
If I have to, yeah. I don't like to limit myself. Do you?
Keep an open mind, Dan.
Yeah.
No, I have to be really, 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 really desperate to
Of course, yeah. I don't go out and think I need a shit. I'll go for a walk and find the nearest toilet.
Sure.
Shit in comfort. That's my advice.
Dan shits in the public toilets for dogs.
Someone's got to.
But generally in the UK, when you go in, especially to a bar, you go into a toilet at night. In the men's toilets, there's always a man that's like selling like aftershave, chewing gum, sweets, and generally they have like a little song that they sing. Here is one which I found on YouTube.
Fresh enough for punani, punani, punani. Fresh enough for punani. We love pussy.
So if you didn't understand, the man was saying there, freshen up. So, like make yourself clean for punani. And that is basically another way to say women's genitals. But I did some research into that word, Dan, because I thought it was a very strange word.
It's informal as well. Don't write it in any homework you've got.
Yeah, but apparently it's actually the name of a flower in Hawaii. So, that's comparing female genitalia to...
Maybe it's been about a flower this whole time. And
Well, that's it. Anyway, he says, freshen up for punani, punani, blah, blah, blah. We love pussy, which pussy and punani is... the same. Again, as Dan said...
Do you love pussy?
I've said this once, Dan, and I'll say it again. My mum listens to this podcast, so I'm not answering that question. So yeah, both of them are not very nice words, and that's the type of thing that they say in men's toilets. But I was thinking about this, men's toilets and women's toilets, because women's toilets have always fascinated me. I think, like, when I was a child at school, I went into the girls' toilets once.
Oh, God, this is where it all started, wasn't it?
And it was just a crazy experience. So one, I don't know if these men exist in women's toilets saying freshen up for, I don't know what.
Cock.
Freshen up for cock doesn't really sound as good though, does it?
No.
But yeah, it's always fascinated me, girls' toilets. I mean, how do you imagine women's toilets, Dan?
I don't really.
Because I always imagine it like a clean place, almost like heaven.
I've heard they're filthy.
Well, this is it, because I did a little bit of research and found a report by a caretaker from a school. So what is a caretaker, Dan?
Someone who cleans a school.
Yeah, he takes care of the school. So that's why he's a caretaker. Anyway, so yeah, they generally clean the toilets and stuff. And he said that men's toilets, you know what you're getting. It's just a bit of piss on the floor, because men obviously try to piss in the toilet. They miss the toilet. Mm-hmm. So he says you just clean that with like a mop and everything's fine. But he says women's toilets are absolutely disgusting, because one, they try to flush women's stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think everyone knows what you mean.
Well, you're not the most intelligent, Dan, so I just wanted to make sure you were on board so that you were understanding.
Thank you.
And the biggest thing, he says, is that a lot of women piss on the toilet and also shit because they use the hover technique. So what would you describe the hover technique as, Dan? Where
your ass doesn't touch the toilet.
Yeah, because people are worried it's dirty, so they hover.
I've done that myself, though.
Well, see, I move away from the hover technique and I go for the padding technique. So the padding technique is when you take the toilet paper and you pad it, literally pad it. So you put like 3 layers of the toilet paper on the seat, then sit down. So that's my technique.
That's good advice, but it's just too much hassle.
Speaking of techniques, though, I do have something that changed my life regarding poos.
Go on.
So this is generally actually good advice.
Oh, not this fucking stool.
A stool. So humans are naturally made to poo in a particular way. It's very unnatural the way we poo. I actually did some research about this. So to poo in a healthy way, you need to lift your legs a little bit into like a squat position. So if you just put something to put your legs on when you go and you do a poo, it's more healthy, Dan.
Yeah, well, why are you doing research on this stuff?
No, but that I knew years ago. On a podcast I listened to called Model Health Show, which gives information about how to be healthy. Very recommended.
Okay, so how has this changed your life?
Well, because I just poo much better.
What does that mean?
I feel cleaner inside. Dan, when you start pooing like me, you will know the difference. Okay? Nobody can understand until they try this. So I recommend to everyone, put something under your feet. It's very easy. It's not disgusting. You don't poo outside. And believe me.
Are you going to put a link in the show where you can buy them?
In fact, yeah, good idea. Well, you can put anything there, Dan. But believe me, you will poo like there's no tomorrow. Okay? A nice little expression there. But we have to be careful on the toilet, Dan, because accidents do happen. Some famous people have died on the toilet. Do you know any of them?
Elvis.
Exactly.
Wasn't he eating a burger as well?
I'm not sure about that. If any of the listeners know, let us know. But I mean, eating on the toilet, that's one thing where, I mean, I will have to draw the line there. So that's to say, like, I have to say, that's enough, stop.
One of my friends once not only ate something, he went to buy something from a van and he was eating it in the toilet, but he also was holding something he bought for someone else.
How did he wipe his arse? So remember when you wipe your arse when you clean your arse?
Well, we could only presume he put it on the side.
I thought you were going to say he basically used it to wipe his arse.
No.
But apparently King George died on the toilet as well in 1760. Because apparently when you are on the toilet, when you hold your breath, when you push, when you go like, and you stop breathing, that puts a lot of pressure on your heart and puts your body into panic mode, Dan. So it can kill you. But, you know, that must have been a big poo. Really big.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, it's life-threatening.
That's it. I remember when I was a child once, I thought I was doing a poo that was so big, I thought I was having a baby. It was, honestly...
Did you cry?
Well, I can't remember, but I thought babies come out of your arse, and I was doing a poo that was so big, I thought, this is just one thing. It's just a baby. What else can it be?
Of course, yeah.
But I've got a question for you, Dan. Would you rather die on the toilet or drowning? So drowning is when you are, you know, under the water and you can't breathe. It's not the best way to die.
Presumably I'm not drowning in the toilet.
Not drowning in the toilet, no.
I'd rather drown.
Yeah, I think I would. It'd be so embarrassing, wouldn't it, just to die on the toilet?
Yeah, because I imagine you'd be slumped over and then everyone's going to look in there.
Yeah, so yeah, let's just drown in the sea, Dan. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go together.
No.
We're like Titanic. We can die together.
Oh God.
So I've got some productive things to do on the toilet, Dan. Do you do anything productive on the toilet?
Yeah, I normally do. I normally message you, and I normally save those for the toilet, or I do sort of app-based language games. Now I'm trying to learn French.
Well, that is interesting you say that, Dan, because apparently the more apps people have on their phone, the longer they spend on the toilet.
Well, yeah, I think I should spend longer on the toilet, to be fair, because I think it's a nice place. You know, it's a bit of me time.
Well, I agree. I think you mentioned once before that you listen to podcasts on the toilet as well, Dan.
Occasionally, yeah.
I don't do that. I talk on the phone, though. What about you?
Yeah, I sometimes take my laptop in there as well.
Oh, that's a bit
do
much.
Some work.
That's a bit much. That's excessive. I think that when you talk on the phone to someone, you need to have known that person for like a few years. You don't want to just, you know...
Of course.
Talk to some random person on the toilet. You have to have a good relationship with that person. Especially
if you have to flush. I mean, there's always that awkward moment.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Plus, you know, it could just... A sound could come out like a... And then, how do you explain that? But as Dan said, though, learning languages on the toilet is a very useful thing to do because you can utilise that time. And soon, maybe you will see some stuff from Rock and Roll English that you can learn on the toilet. This is exciting times, Dan.
I can't wait. Yeah.
Well, I know you can't. So now we're going to move to some more personal pooing stuff and just general toilet stuff. Because I noticed when I went to see Dan, when he goes to the toilet and he does a piss, he aims for the middle of the water so everybody can hear it. Sort of like this. I have a sound like this. See, the polite thing to do is aim for the side so it doesn't make a noise. But Dan wants to show what a man he is. So he goes right for the middle of that water, just so everybody knows Dan's in the toilet.
Listen, I'm competitive. I've got an excellent aim, okay? For me, it's a sport in there.
Well, if it were an Olympic sport, Dan, you would win the gold medal. So congratulations. Nice second conditional there. If it were an Olympic sport, you would win the second conditional. You would win the gold medal, Dan. So another question for you. Do you poo at other people's houses?
Oh, if I absolutely have to. I think my first girlfriend I ever had,
There's not been many.
There's not been many. You can count them on one hand. I had to go to the loo. I can't.
How long had you been with her at this point?
Well, they never really liked me, so it wouldn't have mattered really. It could have been years. But I was having the poo, and then I flushed, and then it didn't go, so I had to do the double flush. And when I came out, everyone knew what had happened. It was just awkward.
Oh, that is awkward. I can imagine. Yeah, I think again, similar to like speaking to someone on the phone, to poo in someone's house. I think a minimum 5 years you have to know each other before you can poo in that person's house.
My friend told me that a plumber came round and asked if they could use the toilet. Saying yes because they thought it was a piss, and he had a shit.
So a plumber is the person that fixes like the water stuff in your house, a bit like Super Mario. I remember when I was a child and I was at someone that lived down my street's house, and I said, I'm just going to go home because I need to do a shit. I was about 10 at the time, and he said, don't worry, my mum will clean your ass. And I said, I haven't got a problem. I haven't got a problem to clean my ass.
It wasn't my mum, by the way.
So I haven't got a problem to clean my ass. I can clean my own ass, thanks. I just don't want to shit in your house.
Is this someone I know?
Well, maybe when we were kids. It's just someone that lived down the street.
Okay.
But do you have any embarrassing stories, Dan? Well, I mean, you've already told us some, but...
Yeah, I've got loads. Well, last year, for example, I had a shit at work, and the flush had broken, so I couldn't flush the shit. So I then came upstairs, told the managers quietly.
Just tell all the office that you've done a shit.
I said, we need to get a plumber out. The toilet's not working. He went, okay, yeah, I'll sort it out. I know, seriously now, because I've done a shit in there.
Emergency plumber.
Yeah, he goes, oh, for God's sake. So then he called someone, but he made me, because he didn't really like me, go to my PC and print off the out of order sign in the office so everyone could see it. And everyone knew I had broken the toilet with my shit.
Well done, Dad. My embarrassing story also relates to work, actually. So I had been working in the bank, not for very long, and I was at the urinal, which is like the men's toilet, so that you can only piss in. And there was only 2 urinals, and I thought, okay, well, there's no one here, so it's okay. And then as soon as I went there, my boss come and stood next to me. And everybody knows there is a law. If there's one person in a urinal, don't go to the next one. Mm-hmm. You either leave one free in the middle, but as there wasn't one free, you go to the normal toilet. He
was trying to intimidate you, let you know who was boss.
Well, this is it. He did intimidate me, and then I got what we say stage fright, so I couldn't do anything. Often actors might get this before, I don't know, a theatre show. And so I got stage fright, and I couldn't piss, and I was really trying. So I thought, okay, if I just push hard, then it will come out. Because it was getting embarrassing, because he could hear I wasn't pissing. So I started like pushing my stomach, and then a sound just came out. So you have to picture this. We're here, silence, me and him standing next to each other.
He thinks you're looking at his cock.
Well, I'm not pissing, and then just this sound. Oh my God, it was so bad. And then I had to pretend that I had pissed, finished, washed my hands, went back, sitting next to him. I could feel him looking at me. Obviously, I didn't work in that job very long. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I hope you've learned some stuff about pooing today. Remember, don't have a heart attack on the toilet by holding your breath. Breathe on the toilet, okay?
Breathe deep.
Breathe deep. Yeah. Okay, we don't want anyone dying on the toilet, okay?
Yeah. And maybe someone out there's got some funny stories themselves.
Well, if you do, let us know. Anyway, thanks for your time, Dan. We'll see you later.
See you later.
See you later. Okay, so that was Dan the Man and me speaking about pooing. Let's have a look at some of that rock and roll vocabulary. So we had dump, which is another word for poo, not very polite, but a polite way was number 2. As Dan said, it's best not to tell anyone what you're doing, but if you have to, the best way to say it is a number 2. And a number 1 is obviously we, and number 2 is poo. We had a nice idiom when I said to Dan, you hit the nail on the head, when he guessed that we spend 3 years of our lives on the toilet. So when you get exactly the right answer, often people say, you hit the nail on the head. We can also use it for more vague concepts. For example, if I say to you, how would you describe Dan the man? And you said, boring. I would probably respond, you hit the nail on the head. We had flip-flops, which are like the open-air summer shoes. Flush the chain, which is a very important piece of toilet vocabulary. And obviously means when you press the button and the water takes away your poo and all of the rest of your stuff. Often people would just say flush, but generally flush the chain. Dan used a nice expression when he said that he had seen some horrible toilets in Italy, and he said they sent shivers down his spine. So they make him very scared. So your spine is obviously your back, and if it sends shivers down your spine, it makes you go like, ugh. And it's just a very scary, disgusting thing. You may remember the song of Freshen Up for Punani, We Love Pussy. So remember, Punani and pussy are some not very nice ways to describe, the female vagina, I suppose. But freshen up is a nice phrasal verb, actually, which means just sort of refresh yourself. Often people will say, I'm just going to go home and quickly freshen up, like have a shower, have a wash, and then I will come out again. We had the word caretaker, which is the person in the school that generally cleans and just generally takes care of the school. The verb hover is a nice one when we were talking about the hover technique that women do on toilets. So it just means when you remain in one place in the air, like a hoverboard from Back to the Future, where it doesn't touch the ground. It's just a bit above the air. Speaking of techniques, we also had padding technique. So the verb to pad is when you put material over something to protect it. In this case, I put toilet paper on the toilet seat to protect myself from the disgusting toilet seat. So I pad it with toilet paper. Another nice expression that I said to Dan, so if he uses my technique, pooing technique, I said he will poo like there's no tomorrow. So that's when you do something very fast and you do a lot of it. For example, when I came to Italy at the beginning, I was eating Nutella like there was no tomorrow because I was eating it all the time. Now I don't like it, if you're interested. Another nice expression, again used by me, I think I use more rock and roll vocabulary than Dan today for the first time, is when I said I have to draw the line. So when I was talking about eating on the toilet, I said I have to draw the line there. So that's when you set a limit on what is acceptable. So for me, it's acceptable to talk on the phone, like do stuff on your phone, but eating on the toilet, I have to draw the line there because that is not acceptable for me. We had like wipe your ass or wipe your bum, which is the same as clean your ass, but generally we use wipe because that's like the action you do with the toilet paper. And some solid nouns that we used were plumber, who's the man that fixes the stuff in the toilet, like Super Mario, and urinal, which is like the toilet, especially for men, that only men can use. Americans actually say urinal, I think, and laugh when we say urinal, if you're interested. And if you're interested in seeing all of this vocabulary, remember, go to rockandrollenglish.com, find it there, do the quiz, and generally have fun. So I will stop wasting your time now. Thanks a lot for listening. If you want to, leave a review, that's not a bad thing. And have a great week. See you next week, and just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.